Do you take enough breaks? How do you know when you need a break? When do you take them? How do you come back after a break? So today I'm going to talk about how to balance action and rest, how to relax efficiently to be ready for action, and how to apply this to set realistic intention for your year so that you actually do what you planned while staying mentally and physically healthy. Bonjour, Life Sparkler. It's Claire from Integrally Alive, an apologetic freedom for unconventional humans with practical body-mind wisdom and tools to create a life feeling alive from the inside out. Show notes and resources on integrallyalive.com as usual. So one of the most important things with taking breaks is the timing. Have you ever heard, well, we'll sleep when you're dead? Well, that's exactly the problem. You don't need to sleep when you're dead. You need it now to stay alive. And I hear you. But Claire, you cannot always choose. And I know. I personally had a reminder of that just before Christmas. I was in Melbourne, Australia, and I had to travel to Vietnam. Now, I was tired. I just finished a 3 months NLP training the day before. I obviously didn't choose the dates, and due to my visa expiring, I needed to exit the country right away. Well, arriving in Vietnam with the change in weather conditions and the time zone, my body said, stop! And I just had to rest and relax, which I thought I would do, just not, to that extent. And the thing is, because I needed that break earlier but couldn't stop, now my body-mind needed a lot of rest, like a lot. Logical, right? A big step in one direction will need a big step in the opposite direction, to balance. So what are those directions? The two phases of your autonomic nervous system. Autonomic means that these two functions of the nervous system, they function without you consciously controlling it, or even sometimes being aware of it. It's sleep, digestions, etc. Natural responses. And these two phases are your sympathetic nervous system, which is often called fight and flight and freeze. It's the stress response and action nervous system, and the parasympathetic nervous system, rest and digest. It's in charge of nourishing your body and restoring your body and mind. So they control your bodily functions, both of them, but they send opposite messages. Your sympathetic nervous system accelerates your breath and heart rate and sends blood to the muscle. No time for thinking. It's all for action. And if you have ever asked yourself why suddenly, when the person you're trying to charm appears and you turn into a complete idiot, well, that's why. Your blood is everywhere but in your brain. So thoughts, might not be so clear. And this sympathetic nervous system also shuts down your immune system. Again, when you need action now, like when you need to run for your life, and that's how it was designed, you don't you don't have time for sickness. You don't have time for injuries. You don't have time for all of this. Now, your parasympathetic nervous system, opposite, decreases your breath and heart rate. It sends blood to your organs to digest, to eliminate toxins, to all the restorative functions like sleep. And it supports your immune system. So ideally, you want those two to balance. You want to activate your parasympathetic nervous system to rest and relax, so that when time comes and you need to, you're ready for action. And you can then activate your sympathetic nervous system without running in empty. And of course, the king activity for the parasympathetic nervous system is sleep. Yeah. And I'm putting you a very interesting TED Talk in the resources about why you should take time to sleep. And it gives great examples of consequences of these sympathetic, parasympathetics balance or imbalance. Super interesting. So if you activate one or the other for too long, then it can get difficult to switch to the other one. And when you do, it can turn into an opposite imbalance. So for example, have you ever procrastinated for a long time, and then suddenly woke up super motivated, decided to take action, went in because you're waiting for so long, like a warrior, and then end up exhausted? Classical, totally unbalanced swing. And we don't want this kind of binary, almost like one, all of nothing kind of swing. We want a kind of wave, like a bit like a Hawaiian dance, actually. Anyway, back to our nervous system. So this is great, but how to apply this to open the year on a good note and put all the chances on your side to have a great year? So I have a Vietnamese story to give you an idea. And because, I'm in Ho Chi Minh City right now, and how you're in Asia? Well, to begin with, you have a Cinderella plate, and it's not for kids, it's for you. And you're in the street, and this is a true story for 2 weeks ago. You're in the street and you see an elderly woman with a Hello Kitty bag, so sweet. And this Hello Kitty bag is the typical image we get from Vietnam, from these completely surcharged bags that goes like kind of by miracle. So how do they get there? Because there's a knot to it. First, you charge your bag until it's reasonably full. And most of Westerners would stop there, or maybe even before. But then you spot every empty space and tuck small objects in it. Then you find a way to add a bit more, and turning the whole thing into a kind of miracles on wheels. And then you're ready to go. And after the first sense of, wow, I'm doing it, it was possible after all, you feel quickly sorry that you weren't more realistic in regards to what is comfortably carrying. And now it's too late. You just push through the discomfort, because now you don't have much choice unless you want to spill everything on the floor, or go back, but you're already gone. And I know, again, I know this so much, because this is how I used to feel a lot of things in my life, including my planning. And no wonder that back then I often moved a whole section of my to-do list from one day to the next and the next. And and by the way, what is amazing is at that time I didn't pay so much attention to what I did on that day. So instead I felt unproductive and procrastinator. Great, isn't it? Anyway, that might be a story for another podcast, actually. But that's actually exactly how a lot of us still set intentions at the beginning of the year. And, we end up at the very best overwhelmed, not achieving these intentions, and at the worst, exhausted or even burning out, completely stressed out. And that's a shame because as the way you begin the day dictates everything that's going to happen that day, the way you begin the year is critical. So now is a great time to be kind to yourself. And I don't know, maybe under the illusion that this time, this year, it would work, you made your New Year resolutions. And maybe, I don't know, you might already see that they are unrealistic and they look more and more like a wish list. So, what about shifting that and beginning the day intentionally now? How do we do that? First, check your intentions. And if you didn't set some, congratulations. Instead, check what you want to create this year. And for each intention, imagining yourself being there. What did it take? And especially focus on your energy level, on your, like the sleep, the emotional state. Did you feel under pressure? Did it happen in the timing you planned? And whether the answer is a yes or a no, why? What happened? What worked? What didn't work? Learn from that and then come back to now and change your planning accordingly so that you can create it from a relaxed and healthy state. And if you've looked my Facebook Live these last days, I'm talking a lot about the importance of state. I will talk about it more in an upcoming podcast. But basically, the way you feel while you are doing something is really critical to you doing that thing. So, what do you need to plan so that your state when you are doing these intentions, making these intentions real, is a resourceful state? Now, this is for planning. Second thing, now that you know what you want to do and that you made sure that it was realistic, it was not some kind of overcharging a Vietnamese bike kind of story, take the habit to do regular checks with your energy level. So instead of deciding from your head when to stop and take breaks, decide from what is actually happening. On a regular basis, make a check. How do I feel? How do I feel physically? How do I feel emotionally? How do I feel in general energetic? Do I feel tired? Do I feel like, yay, let's move on? And be aware that your intellect might tell you something like, yeah, this is so interesting. Let's move on. But this is different from your energetic level, which is actually telling you, yeah, but let's just like stop and come back to it later because I cannot do it anymore now. So don't ask your intellect. Your intellect, usually it wants to continue. You will have lots of reasons, good or bad, for not stopping. Listen to them though, even though you don't put them in action, but listen to what your intellect says, because you will discover in them your resistances against resting. What's preventing you to take some rest when you need it? And it might be some story like, well, I really need to finish it today. Like, absolutely. And it might be true. Like, happens, right? But is it really? Worth questioning it. Why would it happen if it's finished tomorrow instead after a good night's sleep? Or it could be something like, I'm okay. Oh, no, I'm okay. I'm just very, very busy. And again, sometimes we have busier periods. It happens. But if it is an ongoing situation, like it repeats itself every day, a week, a month, well, there might be a better organization. Are you doing the job of two persons? So listen to what your intellect says to discover what's preventing you to get enough rest, but listen to what your emotion and physical body say to know when to take breaks. Check your energy level to know when to take breaks. And then, third, when you take a break, let it be intentional. So ideally, if you apply what I just mentioned, most of the time you will take breaks before you really need them. Great, congratulations. It's like, the Chinese proverb to dig a well to find water before you're thirsty. That's exactly the same. So the break you take will be really supportive of your energy and not some kind of emergency desperate emergency measure in order to not to crash. And to be sure you don't go into the opposite direction of staying stuck into the parasympathetic nervous system activation, go into your breaks intentionally, so knowing when they will end. Give them a structure. So it can be a time, it can be what you want to do during these breaks to relax. So it could be, I'm going to stop 5 minutes now. Or two things I love for relaxing. I'm going to dance on that song, and then when the song is finished, the break is gone, has ended. Or I'm going to listen to a sketch from that comedian, and that's a short break I love when I'm working. It's so easy, and it just like clear your mind of whatever you're doing, makes me laugh, which I love, and then I'm fresh to go back. So whatever it is to you, know what your break is going to look like, so you know when the end is, and you don't find yourself like stuck into a YouTube vortex like 2 hours later, for example. Just after that, you can go back into action, refreshed and revitalized. So, did you decide that this year is the year you let kindness for yourself guide your intentions and planning? Go on my Facebook or Instagram page and drop me a 1 in the comments of any of these posts this week's post, if that is the case. And let's have fun. Drop me an emoji of what is going to structure your breaks. Now, see you on Thursday for the usual Facebook Live, where I will answer your questions and comments. So that was your weekly dose of fierce love, a mix of love and brutal honesty. Boom! Life just got more sparkling. And thanks for being there. I really appreciate your presence. I hope you like it. I'm glad if you do. If you want more, subscribe so you get your weekly dose. And if you want even more, start a conversation. Hop on my social, share your thoughts and questions in these week's past. I love to read them, and I reply with fierce love in the comments and in my Facebook Live. Now, stay tuned for the next episode, and à bientôt!